In 1974, the first tabletop role-playing game was created. Since then, people from all around have gathered to play. Join me as we talk with RPG enthusiasts while they share their best, worst, and favorite moments. This is You Had to Be There.
Hey everyone, welcome to You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast where typically we have a bunch of different RPG players come on and we talk about fun stories about playing tabletop role-playing games. I always like to announce this: if you want to be a guest on the show and share some of your stories, you just email me at youhadtobethere@gmail.com, and that is D&D with 3 letters, not the symbol. And then let's so this episode is going to be a little different. And obviously, if you've listened before, you know we don't always just talk D&D. We talk Pathfinder or Call of Cthulhu, whatever awesome game you're playing. But this time, we're actually sitting down with a couple of the Paizo workers who are going to tell us about how they have recently unionized their workers, which is really awesome. So let me introduce my guests. I have Jason Tondro. Jason, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's good to be here. I'm a senior developer at Paizo, and I work on adventure paths for both the Pathfinder and Starfinder games.
Excellent. And I haven't played any of the Pathfinder games yet, but my brother-in-law is a huge Pathfinder fan, and I have my Starfinder book that he gave me because pretty soon we're going to coax family members against their will to playing Starfinder with us. So got that ready to go. Wonderful. And how long have you been playing tabletop role-playing games?
Oh, gee. I date my first version of D&D was the white box.
Wonderful.
But the first version I owned was the basic set at that time before the red box. Like the player's handbook came out for the first time when I was like a kid and I bought it. Like, so
beautiful.
That was,
love to hear that. And you've been deep down the rabbit hole ever since, clearly, because this is what you do now.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The rabbit hole is my world.
Listen, people say that that's the dream, is to do what you love and get paid for it. So that's what you're doing. Awesome. So we have, usually we do one people here, so my hands are full today. We have another guest, Alex Speidel. Speidel.
Yes,
I'm sorry. I asked you like multiple times. Speidel. Alex, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do over at Paizo?
Yes, hi, I'm Alex Speidel, he, him. I am Paizo's Organized Play Coordinator, which is a job title that no one understands inherently. We have our Pathfinder and Starfinder Society programs that are our living campaigns that are played at conventions and game stores and stuff. And so as the Organized Play Coordinator, I do a lot of work with our volunteers who run the events and that kind of stuff to put on those events and to do kind of the operations side, where the developers work on the editorial side and actually putting out the adventures.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So then how long have you been playing? When did you start? Where your journey begin?
Yeah, not quite as long ago as Jake. I did a little bit of D&D 4th Ed when I was working at summer camp, probably 2009, 2010, but I really got into it August of 2017, right after Paizo released Starfinder. Someone at at a game cafe near me brought home a copy of the core rulebook from Gen Con home and was like, hey, I'm going to run a demo session. So I did a few sessions there and I just fell in love with Starfinder, and now here I am 4 years later.
And now here you are. So Jason, do you feel like you kind of pulled him in now? He's like...
Well, I've been at Paizo for 3.5 years, but Alex, your story about how you got into gaming because of the Starfinder core rulebook, well, that's how I got hired at Paizo. I was not working for Paizo. I was a university professor 3.5 years ago, and Starfinder came out. And a game developer that I really respect, his name is Cam Banks. He's worked at Atlas and many other, and he developed the Cortex RPG. He's the brains behind the Cortex system. Well, anyway, he had just came back from Gen Con. He had a copy of the Starfinder rulebook, and he posted on Facebook saying, this game everyone in the industry needs to look at this game because it is the future of the RPG industry. And I was like, okay, Ken, that's a pretty big claim. Like, I respect you a lot. And I went and bought the book, and what he was talking about was the design of the book, like the way that it's put together and the way that it combines like setting and rules and everything. And it's all like very intentionally graphic designed and everything. And I got into Starfinder with that, and then like within a couple of months, I was applying to join the Paizo team, and now here I am. So we're across the streams a little bit there.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's wonderful. Great. So you've both been with Paizo for a little while. Well, Alex, how long have you been at Paizo for now?
Yeah, so I was hired. I was hired approximately 8 days before we started working from home due to the pandemic. So February of 2020, I had about 8 days in the office.
Yeah.
And then we were working from home for since then. So yeah,
Gotcha.
February 2020, about a year and a half at this point.
Very cool. All right, so let's get into what's been going on. So I understand that you've recently put forth. We're working on formulating a union for the workers. What was like the main driving force, but like for getting this going? I guess really is.
I think I can start there. I don't know if there was a real driving force. I know that there had always kind of been a certain number of discussions among a certain number of people, but definitely the past couple of months in particular have been more turbulent than usual, I think, for our company, and it led a lot of us to really start talking with each other about, hey, we really love what we do. We really love this company. What can we do together to kind of make it a place that treats us fairly, that we are able to work here and not have to kind of make the sacrifices that all of us have kind of accepted to work in the industry. So we really got to talking, and it was like, hey, this is kind of the way to do it. Like, this is basically what we're talking about. So let's do this thing for real. Let's see if we can put this together. Let's see if enough people are interested. And then from that kind of sprouted, people talk to other people, you get 2 people, 3 people. And then all of a sudden it just kind of balloons into this thing where everyone's like, yeah, we're willing to do this. We're really willing to put ourselves out there and say, hey, we want to make a stand of it together. Because that's what it's about really, is working together and standing together.
Right.
There were a couple of things that were going on. Alex is absolutely right. I just want to add.
No, by all means, take it away.
First off, he's right. There had been a lot of talk about unions for years, long before I joined the company, and also at other role-playing game companies other than Paizo. In fact, the last version of this conversation got ended because of COVID. Like, people were meeting and starting to talk about a union, and then the quarantine happened, and we all kind of went home, and that kind of broke it all up. But about 6 weeks ago, I think we have to acknowledge Sarah Marie's dismissal and Diego's subsequent resignation and in solidarity with Sarah Marie as kind of instigating events, right? And that prompted a large social media firestorm. The community responded, and then the freelancers got involved. Maybe we can talk about that later on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I heard about that going on.
Well, that was all going on. What Alex is talking about started to happen, where Jenny Jerzabski and a few other people started inviting people to a pro-union Discord server. And we could all see, and quite frankly, this is a really interesting phenomenon because we were all working from home and we were all working remotely. Well, that meant that we were all using the same electronic communication systems, right? So now, instead of being sort of siloed in our individual departments, like the org play people never talk to anybody else, and the developers talk only to each other, and the warehouse and the computer and the customer service staff and the tech team. Instead, we were all talking to each other, and suddenly we lift our eyes up and we look around and we're like, shit, there's like 35 people here. Like we didn't really realize how many of us were talking about this until we all came together in the Discord server.
It's so ironic how you were split apart, and it actually brought you all closer together. And it was, but that makes sense. Like, that's the power. I know it's kind of weird to say, but that's the power of the internet, where it's like when you're in a big group chat with people, everyone gets to share their opinion. And so you found out that everyone was like in agreement that this is something that needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very interesting for me. I was in a group, or like sort of one of the early chats with like, 5 or 7 different people. And then, we reached out to like someone else or whatever. It was like, oh, they have other people they're already talking to. So it was kind of this convergent evolution of like, well, we're all talking about the same thing. Let's put these groups together. Let's put this group together. And yeah, it was just kind of, it was the moment. It was something we were all willing to do. And it was a really great, weirdly, it was a great experience. Like, it came out of a very difficult couple of weeks, but it was wonderful to like have some very real conversations with my coworkers about like, oh, you feel the same way I do. Like, oh, we're on the same page here. It was really nice.
It was really fast. Like,
Yeah.
the speed with which we were able to form the union, get all of our paperwork processed, get all of our public relations stuff in line. Like, huge credit goes to our organization committee, which has been tireless in their representation and action. I mean, this is the reason why people never formed a union before, is because it's just so much damn work, right? Like, there's just so much to go through, so much the bureaucracy, and there's federal laws, and but Alex and others divided that labor between them, and the rest of us were able to contribute in other ways. We had somebody else do our fantastic logo. We had, and I'm here doing
logo is killer. Let me say. Let me tell you, that is a sweet logo.
In like 48 hours or something, where it was like, hey, we need a logo, and someone came back like a day or two later, like, hey, I put this together. What do you think? We were like, beautiful. That's great. That's ours now.
Yeah. Love it.
And I think I've done like a dozen interviews in the past week. So it's,
Jake's been our media guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just been kind of a way for us all to contribute in our own way to it. And
yeah, for sure.
And that's it. And I'm shocked. Like, the speed with which the union was formed was shocking, and then the speed with which the whole issue was resolved.
Yeah. So talk about that, because it was like, I feel like
a little bit. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It was crazy because I've been doing a little bit, like, looking into these issues, like what's been going on, and then, so like I said, my brother-in-law is a huge Pathfinder enthusiast, and literally I saw him and he's like, yeah, it was like you guys pretty much, you were recognized, it was acknowledged already, right?
Yeah,
that's right.
A week later, I think, after
we
announced, pretty
which
much.
is amazing. That is like that's got to be a world record. Something, I don't know.
We had a lot of help.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, I think, credit needs to go to the management that agreed to do the right thing here. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
They could have fought us. They could have formed an anti-union no committee amongst those few employees that weren't already publicly signers. They could have tried to lure employees away. There's all kinds of lousy, dirty tricks that anti-union companies employ. And to the credit of Eric, Mona, and Lisa and the others on the executive team, they didn't do any of that.
Right.
They kept quiet for a week, which makes perfect sense because they had a lot of lawyers to talk to and a lot to think about. And then a week later, they came out and announced with UPW in a joint press release that they had recognized us. And we're so glad. I'm just so glad because I work with these people. They're my friends, so I like that we can work together.
Yeah, you don't want it to be, like, it's not a war. It's a communication.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, the early days, I do want to kind of walk people through a timeline because we've jumped ahead to the end of the story a little bit. But like, people who are not familiar, but like, one of the things, very early on, like, because it did come out of like this really difficult thing that happened, like, there was a lot of venting early on about like, this sucks, and like, there were definitely some things said about a number of people, including people who are now members of the union, that it was like, we just all kind of had to vent for a little bit. But then, like, after it was like, no, we're really going to do this thing and we're going to make it constructive. We were very clear that like, this is not an attack on management. We want to work with them. Everything that we do in our contract negotiations is going to benefit them, is going to benefit the company and the community. We just want to make sure that we have a voice in it. So like, that was the whole goal. It wasn't an attack on anyone. It wasn't us saying, oh, we want heads on pikes at the front gates or what have you.
That's right.
What was your, like, so when you first, I guess I'm not sure legally what's allowed to be discussed, what's not, but what was like your...
We can talk about more now.
Hey, this is... Okay, cool. So, like, what was your main... Like, this is what we want. Like, if
I
that
mean,
makes sense.
So part of that is going to come out like in the negotiations that we're going to have over the next few weeks as well. But the big things that we have said very publicly are that we want what people's pay is to reflect the actual cost of living in the very expensive Seattle area. We want people to be able to sustain themselves on a Paizo salary, because many people cannot do that on their own. We want transparency in how decisions are made, especially in finances. I've heard stories from my coworkers about like, oh, they used to have these meetings where they'd sit everyone down and talk about like the financial health of the company and how things are going. And like, I didn't get to see any of that. And that's the kind of thing that I want to know. Like, I'm not going to be like, you're making the wrong decisions, do something different. I just want to know where we're at, because everything is so obfuscated. So, you know, those are the big things, and we want to have a voice at the table, and that's what having a union will do. And we want to make sure that we're protected, so that, you know, if someone wakes up on the wrong side of the bed someday and says, gosh, I really don't like that Alex kid, I think I'll fire him today just because I wanna, they won't be able to do that, right? I will be protected. And of course, if I'm bad at my job, if I walk into the office and punch someone in the face, of course they can fire me, absolutely, and they should. But you know, we are protected from any sort of mistreatment like that.
That makes sense. It makes total sense. And I mean, as someone who lives in New York, expenses are so important. Like, and especially obviously, you know, I also do stand up, and I try to, when someone is a creative type and they're trying to make a living, unfortunately, it's some of the hardest work, but it's some of the work that pays the least. And it's super important that these people like you and all the other folks you work with, they put their heart and soul into these games and the writing and the creating, and they deserve to be able to live where the job is too. I mean, right now it's different because you could potentially live in the middle of the country and do your job, but you know, it's not going to be like this forever, and you want to be able to live where you want to live too.
Well, that's it hits on a couple of issues that I wanted to add to Alex's list.
Yeah,
that's the question of remote work.
That as well.
Because we have been working from home for the duration of the quarantine, but that has always only been through the duration of the quarantine, and many of us have quite adapted quite well to working from home. And now, not everybody likes it. Some folks have lots of reasons for going into the office, and that's fantastic. That's awesome. But others can and do work from home. And we'd also like to explore ideas of remote work from somewhere other than the Seattle area or even Washington State. Maybe we don't want to use this as a way to undermine the salary issue, which is very real. Starting salaries for Paizo employees are sometimes like in the mid 30s. And that's less than the cost of living in the cheapest Seattle neighborhood. Yeah. So, I mean, and cost of living a living wage. So, for some folks have suggested, well, what if we could move? What if we could relocate to somewhere where our salary, I believe, starting wage for the editorial department, that's everybody on the creative side, so-called creative side. I don't want to, we actually don't like that term because it implies that everybody who doesn't work there isn't creative, which is not accurate.
No. I mean, I know plenty of creative people that don't work at Paizo, but
of course. But what I mean is like the developers, the designers, the art department, the editors, that sort of stuff. I believe starting salary for that part of the company is $40,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And if that's what you're getting hired at, and if let's say the company decides, well, that's what we can't offer more than that. We're going to open the books. We're going to let the union take a look at it, and you're going to see that that's the best we can pay in this niche industry with very small profit margins. Okay, well then let us move somewhere where that $40,000 will go a lot farther than the Seattle metro area, right?
Right.
Others just have other reasons. Maybe they've got aging family or something, and we've demonstrated that we can do it, as you just noted. In fact, and I'm quoting our publisher here. In many ways, we become more efficient, more productive, working from home than we were in the office. So that the salary review, we need to make sure that Paizo employees and management are all trained on diversity issues. We've talked, there's been some thoughts about hiring some kind of diversity officer that's a permanent part of permanent staff to help ensure that everyone is treated fairly and with respect in the company. Because we've lost employees over that. I've had fantastic, incredibly talented LGBTQ employees who simply could not take it one more day in the office and walked out. And that is a terrible crime, a shame, and it leaves the company worse than it was
Yeah,
before.
I mean, well, welcome to the modern age. We just that's what a good company should gear towards that, and obviously,
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it also reflects the values in the books we publish. Right. We're a super progressive company and we put out progressive books, and the people that work there believe in that. And so we want to make sure that that's 100% guaranteed all the way up through management.
Absolutely. No, that makes total sense. And I full on agree with what you were saying, where in fact, the thought had crossed my mind before you even said it. It's like, well, if you can't pay them that much money, you should allow them to live somewhere where that dollar goes farther. And that makes total sense. And if it's definitely makes sense to be part of the discussion, where if you're one of those higher paid people and maybe they want you in the office, okay, well that makes sense. But if you're on the lower end, be like, you want to go live in, Fort Wayne, Indiana while you work here? I was in Fort Wayne, and just for shits and gigs, I was like, let me see what a house is out here compared to New York. I'm like, oh my God, I could buy one of these houses right now. I could buy one. I was like, I can't even buy an apartment above ground in New York. So it's like, it makes an insane amount of sense from a standard of, from a cost of living, standard of living for someone who's working.
Yeah,
yeah. We just want to make sure everyone we work with is taken care of and is able to have these dream jobs, like you say, and it doesn't have to make painful sacrifices in order to do it, because that's just not fair to ask of someone.
Absolutely. Very cool. So were there any, because I know we were trying to go through the timeline here, so we were on those kind of.
And then we completely
No, it's fine. No. We were going through pretty much what your main quote unquote demand. Not, I don't want to say demands, because that's like a your requests.
Or goals.
Let's go with requests.
Goals
and requests.
One, I think.
Yes, goals is you're right, 100%. So what are your next steps now moving forward? Where are we at with this? I know we have so now we have it's acknowledged. So we're.
Yeah, so we've been officially recognized. We are working with the Communication Workers of America, the CWA. They are the legal backing and the bureaucratic backing. They're the people who we've been going to say, okay, great, we have this thing. What paperwork do we need to do? Because we sure don't know. So they've been immensely helpful. Right now, what we're doing is we are making contact with a couple of the CWA locals in the area, because we've been working with someone out of the Portland office, kind of on the district level there, the way they organize it, but we're going to work with someone more local on electing the bargaining committee, who are going to be the people who actually sit down in the room with whoever the executives representatives are and say, this is what we want, and they hash out the contract that we'll sign. So we have to elect that group. CWA will give us a professional negotiator as well, because that way we don't get taken advantage of by people. If we sit down with lawyers who have way more experience than us,
you don't represent yourselves. If you guys, you know your jobs, let the people who know their jobs do their jobs.
That's what we have the professionals for.
You don't want a lawyer trying to write up a Pathfinder book. It's not going to work out
exactly. Well, we have several lawyers on staff, so I don't want to say too many bad things about them. But
that's why they do what they do.
Yeah. The other thing we'll do is we'll have a bargaining survey that will go out to all of the members of the union to basically say, hey, what are the most important things, so that when we send that bargaining committee in, they know what the group wants. Because if we send out that survey and we find out, oh, actually people care way more about the ability to work from home than having salary increases or whatever, then we know that that's the order of priority, and obviously we'll make sure that we try to get as many of the top priorities as possible. So that's kind of what the next steps look like for us. It'll be a period of probably several weeks, depending on how long it takes to kind of hash out the contract, get through all of the hoops and stuff. But yeah, I mean that's what the next steps look like for us.
It's fantastic. Did you have anything else to add on that one, Jason?
Well, we since our timeline we keep skipping all over. I kind of want to go back and I want to talk about the role of the freelancers in helping make all this happen.
Yeah. So that's
you're the one in this chat who talks to them. So please talk about our wonderful freelancers.
I was filled in a little bit about what was going on with the freelancers as well. So I think it's an amazing thing, almost kind of what happened. So why don't you kind of run through that?
Well, you're absolutely right. It was instrumental in allowing us to make this happen so quickly. I think that we would still have gotten to where we are now, but it would have taken us 2 months to get there. And it would have been a much more acrimonious and a lot harder for everybody. So let's rewind a little bit. We talked about how Sarah Marie was dismissed and Diego resigned in solidarity, and there was a big PR firestorm and a lot of just crazy kind of accusations about the company, but also some accurate ones. And the freelancers a lot of folks don't know that Paizo's business model relies on freelancers. The majority of every book we publish is written by freelancers. As a developer, I pitch an idea. Like if I'm writing a new adventure path or I'm developing a new adventure path, I pitch it to the publishers and the other creatives. Then I write an outline for it, and then I hire freelancers to write the books. And then when those manuscripts come in, I do a development pass on them, which is kind of like a hard edit and changing anything that needs to get changed and checking that it fits all the rules and all. I just try to make it better, basically. I try to sort of turn it up a notch, right, from whatever it was. Well, that means that we depend on freelancers for our publication schedule. And Paizo's business model, in addition to relying on freelancers, requires constant publication of new books. Right. We have to put out new books all the time or we don't pay rent, right? So when the freelancers found out that the Paizo employees were all chronically underpaid and being treated in a way that wasn't healthy and participating in a work environment that wasn't very healthy, over 50 of them organized. And Jessica Redekop was their primary spokesman, and she kind of got the whole ball rolling. And I worked with Jessica. She wrote an adventure path for me just recently, and Jessica and the other freelancers basically they did what's called a concerted action, which is like a strike, but they can't strike because they're not a union. So they basically said, we're not gonna work anymore on the books that we've already agreed to write, that we've signed contracts for. We're not gonna work on them. We're gonna stop our work. We're not gonna take any more new contracts, and we're not even gonna turn in the stuff we've already finished. Okay. Well, so suddenly there was a huge amount of pressure on the Paizo production schedule, right? Because not only did we have books that needed to move on to editing and art and everything because they needed that turned in freelancer material, but we had new books we had to assign. We constantly have new stuff we had to assign, and no freelancers would work with us. Now one obvious sort of argument for this is, well, just hire new freelancers, hire new people, give new people a shot. That's a good-hearted idea, but our freelancers have a lot of knowledge and skill that cannot just be replaced by the next person in line, right? Like they know our rule systems, they know the setting, they can deliver on time, to high quality. Like the Venn diagram of those four things coming together is a lot smaller than people think.
Right? Yeah.
And
it's also a level of trust, right? It's a level of trust. You know who you're working with. You know the quality of work they put out. Finding someone new is a level of uncertainty. Not saying they won't do a good job, but it's a new thing.
Will they? Yeah, right. Or and not only that, in a lot of the situations, there simply was no time. Mm-hmm. Like these manuscripts were due yesterday, right? Like we can't hire a new person to write a 2-month project when that project was due from the freelancer yesterday. So there was simply no time. Well, so the freelancers were under the hashtag, how long have I forgotten it? Well,
the Paizo accountability was
Paizo accountability. Thank you. Yes, thanks.
Their big thing, some of the stories that were shared, they were seeking accountability for some of the stories that they had been shared from the top of the company. And again, they were very kind to all of us, sort of on the ground level of like, we have nothing against you. We love y'all. We want to do the work for y'all, but like, we want to make sure you're being taken care of. So like, they were very much doing it for us. Not, we didn't tell them to do it. They did it all on their own. But anyway, Jake, continue.
Yeah. But Alex is right. We didn't ask for any support from them. We didn't approach them, but they withheld all this labor. And for a while, that was all that was going on because the union talk was all still quiet, right? Like all the public knew was this freelancer Paizo accountability movement. And I think it got pretty lonely for those folks for a while. Like they're, retweeting their hashtags every day, and not a whole lot of people seem to be listening. And I have enormous respect for those freelancers that put their careers in this industry on the line with no hope of actually seeing any results on that. Well, but then when we announced the union, well, the freelancers had previously issued a list of demands, and they included things like salary transparency and work from home and all kinds of other stuff. But on the day that we announced the union, the freelancers changed their demands. They amended those demands to one, recognize the union. And if you recognize the union, then the freelancers will go back to work tomorrow. Well, that was a huge lever. Yeah, exactly.
And then a week later, we were recognized. And
then a week later,
it would not have happened without them, because that was an enormous amount of pressure. And that business model is not unique to our company. Of course, every company in the industry relies on freelancers to write, pretty much all of them. I'm sure there are some that have writers on staff, but it's not an uncommon model. But like Jake said, they put themselves on the line. I mean, this was, in many cases, they were withholding work that there were signed contracts for. Like, this was, in some ways something that if Paizo management had wanted to, they could have gone after them for and said, you have to turn this in or you will be in breach of contract. But they put themselves on the line for us, and it was incredible to see, truly.
And what's also, I think, really extraordinary about this is that this totally reverses the usual power dynamic when a union is announced. Because normally what would happen is the management would go to the freelancers and hire the freelancers to do the things that the unionizing employees would normally do. Right? Or they would threaten us. They would say, well, listen, you guys, you all want to unionize. Well, we can just hire all these freelancers to do your job, and the books will still go out. Like, are you sure you really want to be doing this? Right. And as Alex was alluding to earlier, we work in Washington, which is one of the most regressive labor policy states in the union. Like, it's a total at will employment state. So we can be fired for any reason. We could be fired for any reason. But the creation of the union,
not anymore.
That's not anymore. Now that we've been recognized as a union, federal law protects everybody in the union from at-will termination. So now, now Alex can't get fired unless he punches somebody in the face, which that's I'm quoting him now. But we can't be fired for any reason. So anyway, so the freelancers got us. They made this happen quickly. We had the votes. So if the freelancers hadn't been there, we had an overwhelming majority. We started with 70% of the eligible employees. We only needed 50% plus one, right? But we started with 70, and then every day the numbers went up. Like, the list just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so there was no question that we were going to win the vote. But that's a 2-month process, right? Like, there's paperwork and everybody's
our first hearing with the NLRB was scheduled for November 4th, which is still a week away from today as we're recording this. And that was just to set the parameters of the election. It would have been end of the year before anything was really determined because of COVID delays, mail ballots, all this kind of stuff. But because of the freelancers, it's done and dusted. We're negotiating now.
That's right.
That's fantastic. It's like really, it's like they gave you the layup,
I mean, it really is, and I won't speak for the editorial side of the company because I'm on the operations side. I'm one of those uncreative people, but I mean, I'm incredibly grateful to them, and like
they were like the clerics of your campaign.
Clerics and
they
bards
lived,
and
yes,
the
support characters.
Yes.
What were you saying though, Alex? I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh gosh, I was probably saying something very clever, but I don't remember what it was. So we can
no, I ruined your clever statement.
It wasn't that important, or I would have remembered.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Well, I mean, yeah, it's really interesting because a lot of people don't realize. Like for me, it was learning experience for me to learn, like all of these stories that you play on a weekly basis or monthly basis with your friends and stuff are written by these people.
Yeah.
These freelancers that are just in their homes or in their offices just cranking away all day long, and then they send it to companies like you guys, and you piece it all together, and then there's just so many moving parts, as opposed to like, I don't know, there's just it's way more in depth, and it's really great that this happened so quickly, and hopefully this helps other companies as like a model for future other businesses, not even necessarily in the RPG world, but in general.
Yeah, I mean, I have learned so much over the past month about labor rights, about the labor movement, about how a union comes into being, because these are things that we're just not taught in schools anymore, because, whoever doesn't want about it, if I can put on my tinfoil hat for a moment, right? But, my hope is that, one of my things that I wanted to do when we went public is to be very clear about, like, here's how this process works, so that people can see it, people can see what's involved. And, if anyone, like, has questions, wants to know more, at Paizo Workers on Twitter, our DMs are open, and we will happily point you in the right direction, help you out. Like, it is, we want to take care of ourselves and the people that we work with, but that extends to the industry, right? That extends to any worker. So, like, if there's anything that we can do, like, we definitely want to help people out going forward once we're locked in stone, once we've got our things handled.
Yeah, a lot of us, as we were all kind of meeting and talking about this on the quiet before we announced, we were all kind of sharing our union stories, like how many of us grew up in union families, or our parents provided for the family because of their union job. I was in a teaching union and demonstrated when I was a UCR grad student, and my dad was a sheet metal mechanic, and everyone loves a good union story. And if folks are out there that are in the gaming industry or related industries, like maybe you're in a small computer game shop, right? That's about the size or smaller than Paizo, or maybe you're in war gaming or board gaming or any of those kind of related industries. We want you to have your own union story. We want you to help make that story that you can tell to future generations and your kids about how you unionized your shop, because this is a chance for us to have a seat at the table. I am so relieved, and I'm not on the org committee, as I said, and that's great because I don't want to be but I have absolute trust now that there's people that I'm going to help elect from the employees that are going to be in the room representing the union in these negotiations. And I know that when big shit happens at the company, when big decisions get made, not only am I going to have a voice in them, I'm going to hear about those decisions on a timely basis, and not like the second that it gets sprung on all of us, right?
Surprise, here's a blog post about a new product or a new change that's being made. Which has been the model so often. That's right.
And Alex is all about this. And so I wanted to, you mentioned something earlier about people that are kind of working in their offices or working at home, and just how our games get made by regular folks, Yeah. And that's absolutely true. And it reminded me of something else that I would like to see changed in the company, or I should say fixed in the company. And that's some of our hiring practices. When I was hired, I applied. I saw there was a posting for 2 positions on the Paizo website. They were hiring an editor, and they were hiring an organized play developer. Well, I had never played organized play in my life, so I didn't even apply for that job. Mike Kimmel ended up getting that job, who's now a Pathfinder designer. No, I'm sorry, Mike Sayer.
No,
Mike Sayer.
I was going to say, wrong mic. Wrong mic.
Yeah, my apologies. Mike is listening. Mike Sayer got that job, who started off in organized play and then became a Pathfinder designer. But I applied for the editor gig. And when I applied for that job, I sent in a resume like anybody else. And I got an interview, and then I got a test. I got 3 days and a stack of Paizo pages to edit and send those pages back, right? And then everything about me, my name, anything that could identify who I was removed from that test so that it could be graded anonymously. And nobody knew who I was. Was I an insider at the company applying? Was I a freelancer? Was I just some stranger? And that was good. That anonymous application process made it more fair, right?
True.
Oh, well, so, and that's how I got hired. Well, over the last couple of years, especially as we've been kind of time crunched and COVID has deformed the way that the business normally operates, sometimes we've had to make some shortcuts. And when we need to hire somebody and we don't have a lot of time, we'll just go to our freelancer pool. Now, those are fantastic people. I am not here to say anything bad about the freelancers, and they know our work and they know us, and there's a lot of reasons to hire them. But there's a lot of other people out there in America who deserve a chance to work at Paizo too. And They should be able to apply like anybody else. Those jobs should be posted and left on a website for a month or so. They should, for people to see, or they can be listed on all kinds of services, and people should be invited to apply, and they should be able to apply with all of their names and things wiped clean so they can be judged on the quality of their work, not anything else about them. And it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it's for people that want to get into this industry. We need to be fair about how we grant those opportunities,
Yeah, I mean, I have very much the same story as Jake. I was an org play volunteer for like 6 months before I was hired. I was not someone on anyone's radar. I was just doing my own little thing in my game shop in Cleveland, and I applied to the job, and I did not think I was going to get it at all, to be real clear. But I applied to the job because it was publicly posted, and it was like, that seems like a thing I'd be good at. I'm good at organization and that kind of stuff, so I applied and I got it. Whereas I think if in another circumstance, if it had been even a few months later and we needed someone now, they would have gone to the experienced volunteers. They would have gone to the people with years of experience in the program, and I wouldn't be here, which I would be sad about, but I think the program would look different now if it was someone else at the helm. Not necessarily better or worse, just different. And like Jake says, everyone should have the opportunity. It should be an open and transparent process as much as possible, and that's just one of the things that we want is to do that, so it's not just our buddies, our best freelancers who are getting hired in.
Right. Well, I mean, as one thing I always think about now, like with companies like this, is there are so many, if you think about it, like so many people out there that are writing their own campaign. There are millions of freelancers out there, quote unquote freelancers, that there could be, it's kind of like that person who's a phenomenal singer and they're like, why don't you do it? And they're just like, nah, just do it for me. Like there's probably the best RPG campaign writer is probably just someone who lives somewhere and they're just like, nah, I'm cool being an accountant during the day and writing my amazing story at night. But so I talk to someone every other week where they're just like, and I learn the most, and they'll tell me something that they wrote. I'm like, you wrote that? And they're just like, yeah. I'm like, that's amazing. My DM amazes me every week. I'm like, what module is this from? She's like, I wrote it. I'm like, get out of here. Wow. Thank you for letting me take place in this. It's amazing. And
we're very lucky that we live in the era that we do live in, so that anybody that's out there that wants to write for an RPG can. Like you don't need a publisher anymore. And if you're a Pathfinder and you're a Starfinder fan and you just want to write well, that's great. We've got places you can do that. You can go to Pathfinder Infinite now and Starfinder Infinite now, and you can write that stuff. But you don't need to. Like you can write your own stuff. You can make your own games. You can use the D20 license and do your own thing. OGLs. There's a million ways you can write your own game. If you don't want to design it from scratch, if you want to use somebody else's game system, hell, there's a half a dozen game systems you can use to do that now. And if you want to invent the game from scratch, you can. a lot of the old barriers and gatekeepers to independent publishing are gone now. You don't need warehousing. You don't have to have a garage full of published books that you have to mail to game stores anymore. You can get all that stuff done print on demand or purely electronic. And that's, now that doesn't make it any easier necessarily. You still have to do an incredible amount of work. And often you have to learn multiple skill sets. If you don't want to hire an artist, then what are you going to do for art? And if you don't want to hire somebody to do graphic design or layout for your book, then you're going to have to learn how to do graphic design yourself. And you're going to have to learn the financials of your company and all kinds of other things. But that's something that one person can do. And if you want to hire other people to do that, it's so much easier. It's easier than ever to find those people and to actually hire them.
Right. Absolutely.
And with crowdfunding sources and all kinds of stuff. So it's an incredibly exciting time to be an independent game maker. And I would love to see Paizo get even bigger, and Lord knows we could all stand to hire more people in pretty much every department.
Absolutely.
But if we don't get to do that, like, do not wait for us. If you are out there and you want to write your game, like, do not wait for Paizo. You can totally do that, and I'd love to read it.
They're doing it. I mean, they're doing it. That's amazing. Is there anything, like I said, if there's nothing else, is there anything else you wanted to mention about the union or anything itself? Because again, like I said, I would love to just hear one fun RPG tabletop role-playing game story true to the you had to be there method before we skip out of here. So if there's anything else you guys want to mention.
I will definitely give you that story in a moment. I think I would be remiss if I did not do some blatant self-promotion for the union. So
do it up.
At Paizo Workers on Twitter, we have, I think, like a Facebook and an Instagram account that I'm not sure are doing anything right now. Twitter's the main one right there. Our website is unitedpaizoworkers.org. You can read all our press releases. You can read the blog posts we wrote. We've got merch there as well. You can get yourself a lovely little button here to show your support. All of that money we're looking at, we've had way more merch sales than we expected, so we're looking at how we can use that money to benefit the Paizo staff and to benefit the community at large. There are some interesting discussions that we have to figure out what we can do legally with the money that we've been given, but we've got some plans for it. It's not just money that's going in our pockets.
Wonderful.
But some of it might, if that's what you're after as well, I guess maybe that'll happen, who knows. But just follow us, support us, talk about us, and like I said, if you are interested in unionizing your workplace, if you just want to know more about what's involved with that, reach out to us, reach out to the CWA, reach out to the union for your particular industry. Let us know. Everyone should be in a union. That's been my guiding principle through all this.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and if you like what you've been hearing, if you like the idea of a union at Paizo, then tell somebody, tell people.
Absolutely.
Tell Eric Mona and Lisa Stevens and Jeff Alvarez that you're glad they made the decision that they did. Like, everyone loves to hear a pat on the back, and I guarantee you, and go onto our forums. And I know that sometimes the Paizo forums can have a reputation for a flame wars, but listen, you can go there. You can post, hey, congratulations, you did the right thing, and then you can leave. You don't have to. You don't have to engage with every other fiery thread on there. And spread the word, and follow us like Alex said. And we have. I can't wait to hear what the next exciting steps are going to be, and we'd love to have people follow us and come along with us on that journey.
Yeah, and one other thing we should say as well, also support the products we put out. I have sort of a biased opinion, but I think we put out some pretty good books. I don't know. Check them out, maybe. Pathfinder and Starfinder are union made now, so that's right. Cool, I think
we are the only union made RPG. And
that's true. Actually,
and if you haven't picked up Pathfinder, you haven't picked up Starfinder, but you want to support the union, go pick up the core rulebook, man. It's a pretty good book. You will not be disappointed.
I know it's my job, but man, Pathfinder's just such a good game, and Starfinder's such a good game.
I'm excited to eventually.
It's so good.
I was born in the virtual world of RPG playing, so I've had my one. A couple of my buddies, they're like you have to try it. You have to I've starting to get into that knack of building I've been playing 5th edition, but I'm finding these combinations in 5th edition where I'm learning how to build. I built a very stupid rogue barbarian that was doing like 10d6 worth of damage at level 5 or 6, and my one buddy who plays Pathfinder, he was like, "You're ready." He was like, "You're ready." I was like, "Dude, I gotta tell you what I did the other day." And then he was like, "Yeah, you're ready for Pathfinder." I was like, "All right, I'll get in there. Get in there." So
that is our bread and butter.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that's what So let's
talk about Pathfinder for another hour, but I won't.
I know. I'd love to. Hey, listen, if you know, a few months down the road, if either of you want to come back and just talk about fun games, you're more than welcome.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, let's go to Alex. Tell me, give me like one of your favorite tabletop or Pathfinder or D&D or whatever favorite moments. Let's go.
Having just said nice things, I'm going to betray it by talking about 4th edition. But so I remember, like, I have so many good stories about like Pathfinder and Starfinder, but like the one that was like a formative moment for me about like, oh, this is a thing I really like, was one of my very first sessions of D&D way back at that summer camp that I talked about. I was in the party. I was a scion, I think. My character is unimportant to this story. But you know, one of my buddies was a wizard. He claims he was a wizard. To this day, he won't tell me what he was. But at one point, we were just looking for information. We were trying to track down someone because we were being paid money to bring him back to town or whatever. And he just walks off for a moment, and he wanders back, and he says, "I got information." And I said, "Well, how did you do that?" And he said, "I scared the grass." I said, "What do you mean you scared the grass?" He said, "I scared the grass." I rolled sense motive on him. I rolled poorly. He scared the grass. To this day, he will not tell me how he scared the grass to get information. But my GM assures me that he did, in fact, scare information out of the grass. And that was the moment for me that it was like, oh, there's rules, but like, you can do whatever, you can try whatever you want.
Well, Pirates of the Caribbean, they're more like guidelines.
they're guidelines is what they are. And that for me was just like, oh, this is just playing pretend with some extra rules. Okay, all right, I'm into it.
Yeah, it's pretend, but like what you want to happen won't always happen. And that's like, but then you gotta pretend along with it, and then that's the best part.
Those are the most fun parts, is when a plan falls apart, but...
Yeah, oh, listen. Some of my favorite roles are the bad ones. Jason, let's give me one of your favorite stories.
I could talk about old campaigns all day long, but since you mentioned Call of Cthulhu at the beginning of the show,
we're doing if you're listening to this live, tomorrow around 9 p.m. we're doing a Call of Cthulhu one shot for Halloween on this stream.
Nice.
If you're listening to this, the audio will come out when I put it out because I'm doing 4 people. I've never had to edit that much audio before, so wish me luck. But yeah, tell me about Call of Cthulhu. I'm so excited.
As an undergraduate, I was running Masks of Nyarlathotep, and this is a legendary Call of Cthulhu campaign. I was running the original box of it, and my players were in London. And there's a particular encounter that's infamously lethal in that thing called the Thing in the Fog. And the Thing in the Fog is this kind of mist, and you can't kill it. Like, you cannot damage. This is Call of Cthulhu, so monsters can simply be unkillable, unlike Pathfinder, right? And you can scare it away with light, but that's basically the only thing you can do. Spoilers, obviously, for a campaign that came out 30 years ago, and 35 years ago, and the players missed all of those clues. So when the Thing in the Fog attacked them, it killed everybody, the entire group, except for one player who was hugging the lamppost. Right. And then so that character, whose name was Rebecca Van Helsing, she was a distant descendant of Van Helsing. She sent a telegram back to the players' HQ saying, "Help, help, help, send help, everybody dead, help, help, help." And this became infamous in our game as the telegram. A whole new group of player characters gets made. Everybody makes a new character. They show up and they decide from now on, all we're going to do is just drive-by shoot the evil high cultist, right? Like we're gonna find the evil
Bonnie
high
and Clyde him.
We're not going to try and talk to him. We're not going to interrogate him. We're just going to drive by with submachine guns and just shoot him on the street. Yeah. Well, so they drive by and they decide that they want to grab him. They want to pull him into the car so they can ask him questions. Big mistake. They open up the car door, pull him in. He casts a shriveling spell on one guy who goes insane, and the car goes sideways. Everybody dies again. So two weeks in a row, 2 complete party kills. It was the telegram followed by the car, and we still tell that story.
Amazing. I'm so excited to either die or go completely insane tomorrow. Let me tell you, I'm really, really pumped. I've been waiting for this. I'm already insane, so like, Like, oh,
Yeah, you're good.
it's less insanity points, more making my character more like me points.
There you
So
go.
I'm really excited. Those are, thank you so much for sharing those stories. That's what typically the show's all about. But it was an absolute pleasure having both of you on. Why don't you, I know you plugged all your other plugs. Why don't you tell anyone where they can find, Jason, you have your Twitter account?
Yeah, for sure. I'm at Dr. Comics. And I that's on Twitter. That's basically where I am. I also do a lot of developer diaries where I kind of do deep examinations of various Pathfinder products that I help make. So I went into the Fly for Your Die adventure path, and I do a bunch of other podcasting on the Banff network, the Banff podcast on YouTube with Mike Lafferty and his company, the Fading Bill Games.
All right, Alex, I know you did a lot of plugs. Did you have anything else you wanted to drop?
I mean, I've plugged the union. I've plugged myself too. I'm at Alex Speidel on Twitter. You can follow me, my work Sona at Paizo Org Play as well if you want to follow organized play news. And if you're interested in Pathfinder Society, Starfinder Society, our organized play programs, head to the website, check it out, shoot me a DM, and say, hey, I want to get involved. How can you hook me up with my local group? It's a great way to sort of dip your toe into the waters of Pathfinder and Starfinder if you want to check out the first union-made tabletop RPG.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to do a couple of my plugs and then we'll get you out of here. Thanks anyone for listening. This has been You Had to Be There. Once again, I am Tom DeSillis. You can find me at Tom DeSillis Comedy on Instagram. You can find me at T DeSillis Comedy on Twitter, which is where pretty much I tweet out usually when we go live. My Instagram's more comedy shows coming up and stuff like that. Gotta always let everyone know my intro, the music for my intro was created by Michael James McGarry. You can follow him on It's MJ Made on Instagram or SoundCloud. And my logo for my show was created by Nicole Summers from the Reliably Chaotic podcast. And if you want to be a guest on the show one more time, you want to be on and listen, talk about some cool stuff, it's just you email me at youhadtobethere, dndpodcast@gmail.com, and follow us here live on Twitch, You Had to Be There podcast, and find the audio version pretty much wherever podcasts can be found. Thanks everyone. Once again, this has been You Had to Be There, a D&D storytelling podcast with Jason and Alex from Paizo. Bye everyone.
Bye.